Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Romali here. Welcome to this week's weather. Starting out here across the United States today, the contiguous U.S., we notice that we have a big area of low pressure that is centered out across Wisconsin, and that will just be drifting around, moving towards the north and east over the next couple of days, just bringing with it overall cloudy and cool conditions out across most of really east of the Mississippi River. We had that storm complex that brought severe weather to portions of the Florida Peninsula over the past couple of days and into last night. That has now shifted out into the maritime waters, and we now see clearing skies behind that for Central Florida today, which is obviously good news. Cooler and much more windy today. Some severe weather risk out across portions of South Carolina and North Carolina into far southern Virginia into this evening. But elsewise, the United States, really especially west of the Mississippi, is relatively cool and quiet. Taking a look here at Florida, we notice that again, we have that cold front that is now sliding eastward and southeastward across the Florida Peninsula. And we notice that the edge of that really tropical moisture has now exited the entire Florida Peninsula, and we are just left now in the wake with some instability still remaining. So you might get a few isolated showers to develop on the backside with some of the cooler air aloft versus what the land temperature is. But overall, we have generally clearing conditions out across the entire Florida Peninsula, and it is going to be a little bit windy today. We do have a wind advisory that has been hoisted until about 6 p.m. this evening to account for potential wind gusts of about 35 to 40 miles per hour, but elsewise it is going to be nice and quiet, which is certainly some very good news. And out across portions of the mid-Atlantic today and the Carolinas, we do have an attendant severe weather risk today, a level 2 out of 5 slight risk from portions of South Carolina into North Carolina. We notice that there is some clearing, and with dynamic support not too far away from the area, we could see a few strong wind gusts and or an isolated tornado or two. You notice some of that clearing there, allowing instability to build. So we'll continue to monitor the severe weather throughout the day, but not a huge potential. And then out across the northeastern United States, it is going to be a very cloudy day and cool as well, with rain in the forecast. And in the modeling department here, we're looking at the GFS forecasted dew points for the next several days here. We notice that starting off today, generally speaking, it is going to be, again, those dew points that are going to be clearing out across the entire U.S. And most of the continental United States really is under that cool northerly flow, which is going to really wash out any severe weather potential. We notice that for quite some time, we don't get really any moisture return. This is starting on Thursday. Maybe a little bit of an isolated moisture return setting out for portions of Florida and into Texas, but that's not very long-lived. In fact, dew points barely get up to about 60 across most of the U.S., really. Maybe some isolated potential for some dry line storms or something to that effect on Thursday. But generally speaking, moisture is going to be very confined to the coastal areas for really the majority of this forecast. This goes out through May 7th, and there's only a little bit of moisture return that starts to set up here by the end of the forecast period, really beginning on May 5th, lasting into May 7th, into the early morning hours there. But generally, most of the United States will be under this northerly flow, keeping the severe weather threat at bay for the next while. So overall, it looks to be very cool and dry across most of the U.S. with very limited severe weather potential for at least the next week or so. In fact, taking a look here at some of the model forecast in terms of accumulated precip through May 7th, we notice that the GFS forecast is very consistent with the idea that at least throughout really going into May 3rd, really not much precip across the entire U.S., especially west of the Mississippi River. So the east of the Mississippi River, all of this precip out here across the northeast U.S., this is largely in response to that upper level low that is going to be sitting here for the next couple of days, producing rainfall amounts over 3 inches in spots, especially across portions of Maine into Vermont. But generally speaking, there is almost no rain to talk about for several days. Finally, by May 5th, we may see some scattered showers and thunderstorms return to the forecast. But generally, throughout the day on May 7th, and finishing off this forecast here at 2 a.m. on May 7th, we notice that precip amounts across almost the entire United States are generally under 3 inches in most locations. So there's going to be very dry throughout the next week, if not longer than that. And it is probably going to take a little bit of time for any appreciable severe weather chances to return. So obviously enjoy the nice weather while it lasts, because it will not last forever. We are heading into the May peak severe weather season for most of the central plains. So there should be some severe weather opportunities out there going into later in the month, which will be something that we have to keep eyes on. So that will be something to monitor. Overall weather pattern across the United States and across the rest of the tropics will remain relatively subtle throughout the next while. This actually goes out all the way until May 10th. And really only one storm system that enters the pattern during that entire time out here by hour 174, this on May 7th, and of course another one here on May 4th with a 980 low off the coast here, far removed away from land, so there should not be any significant concern for any winter weather or any real high winds out across this area. Then another one forms and develops and heads well off towards the north by the end of the forecast period. Generally speaking, though, this takes us out till May 10th, which is only then 5 days away from the start of the Eastern Pacific hurricane season. So we're getting closer to the start of hurricane season on the East Pacific side. And also keep in mind on May 15th as well, the tropical weather outlooks will resume for the Atlantic Basin. So that will be something to keep in mind. And we're going to go more in depth into the hurricane season forecast here in a separate video that will be coming out either later today or early tomorrow. So with all that being said, I do hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley. Take care, God bless, and I'll talk to you guys again some more later.